These are my words. I rewrote part of what was discussed with council during preparation. The header of the document is similar to one that I've seen before as a exhibit that was handed in by other experts. I realized that I copied that heading because I thought that was what the court required. Yes, it's not on my letterhead. These are my own words. I've drafted it in my own words. I did send it to council to make sure that I stuck to within their mandate for what I was asked to do. The mandate, my lord, as the court progressed, the mandate narrowed. So from the beginning, when we...
So what does that mean?
So there was a lot of samples in this case. 151 samples was processed. We did not request all the data of all the samples. So we requested so we initially divided the samples between a set A and a set B, and I can give the court a copy of that if that requires, my lord.
No, but you sent one report and your report was then amended after that, after council had looked at it.
So council just confirmed to me that it still is within the mandate. So originally council made a suggestion as to what the... So when we were in the preparation, things that had to be in the report was discussed on a scientific level. So I said if I had to prioritize and not write everything into...
What does it mean was discussed on a scientific level? But council is not a scientist, you are.
Yes, my lord. So the 151 samples that were analysed was divided into two sets because at first I was only made aware of 2 reports by Colonel Otto. Subsequently, I was made aware of 2 further affidavits that she had submitted, I believe in August and December of 2015. Those we started to call sets C and D. No, I just...
You amended it anyway, after discussion with council. You amended your report anyway.
After discussing it with council. My lord, my report was written in my own words. I didn't amend it after...
You undefined.
No.
So, just to get clarity on
What
that, Dr. Alter, so what I want to understand, this document also is dated the 6th of October. So prior to the 6th of October, you had not drafted an opinion based on your mandate, the original mandate, and handed that over to council.
Yes, my lord, there was a copy that I drafted, that I sent to council, and then realized that there were some errors, or rephrasing that had to be done from my side.
So you supported by council?
My lord, I did pick up some of the errors, my lord, not all of them.
So the original document that you forwarded to council, Dr. Aldous, was that in October, or was that prior to the case starting?
It was in October.
That was after you had heard the evidence of Colonel Otto, Captain Hubert, and Warrant Officer Now.
My lord, I had not heard the evidence of Captain Hubert or Warrant Officer Nell. I did, of course, heard the evidence of Lieutenant Colonel Otto, since I was in court.
Yes, but your report was done after they had testified.
After
the others had testified.
Hubert and yes.
So were you aware of what they had said?
My lord, I was made aware that Warrant Officer Nell also said during testimony that there were no permanent record made of the photographs and no...
testimony of the other witnesses?
Not the testimony in full, my lord, my own
But not
team.
in full, but some of it you knew.
Yes.
So who told you that?
My
Counsel.
team alerted me to that.
Sorry?
My own team alerted me to the fact.
So you're aware of everything when you redrafted your report?
I was aware of those pertinent aspects.
Then Dr. August, you understand your evidence correctly as well that after you had drafted your initial report, you sent it to council and then some verification took place
Correct.
between yourself and council.
I told council that some of the wording I felt was unnecessary, and I would send a revised report on the 6th of October, which was actually the Friday. Council wanted to report it much earlier. I just could not give it to council as early as council wanted, my lord. So after the rephrasing of it, it was even later that council got the report.
Furthermore, Dr. August, in the heading of the document, you refer to it as a summary. Is the court to understand that what is contained in this document is not your complete opinion, or it's just highlights of your opinion?
My lord, this is literally a summary. As I testified that the scope had changed over time as resources dwindled, I was asked by council to not look at incompletely at 150 of the samples. At a scientific level, I made the call to only look at the mixtures in more detail, and then do the single profiles only based on, as Lieutenant Colonel Otto also later testified, she had the sample status reports and the electropherograms, so the EPGs. So that is what I requested for the single profile samples. And for the rest we requested more details than that.
So firstly, Dr. August, are you saying that depending on your mandate, what you reported on is what you were asked?
My lord, what I reported on is what I was given time by council to look at. The question just be repeated, my lord, please.
What you reported on in Exhibit EE, Dr. August, is that what you were asked to do by the defense as time went on?
My lord, yes, the scope did narrow, and as the scope narrowed, I reported on that. That is why, on a scientific level, I call this a summary, because it's not the full, every aspect that we picked up on our side that had a problem. So we had to focus eventually on the aspects that I felt were scientifically most
But you were
pertinent.
for a very long time in this case. You sat through the evidence of the Lieutenant Colonel Otto.
Yes, my lord. I'm not currently looking at the calendar. I believe there were 8 weeks from the testimony of Colonel Otto ending until we started, and I had to be in court. For 2 of those weeks, I were away. So then I did start to compile the report, and I was literally focusing on the summarized, so the most pertinent issues at the scientific level. The report, I was told, should not cover literally everything, but focus on as the scope narrowed.
What does that mean, literally cover everything? Doesn't it have to cover it figuratively? What do you mean you say it mustn't cover it literally?
So what I mean, my lord, is that it shouldn't contain every problem that we encountered with the data.
The detail.
Yeah, the detail.
Is there any report you drafted scientifically, I'm talking, before you heard any evidence? Just on objective evidence before you?
My lord, this was the first report I drafted
That's after everybody had testified.
after they testified.
There's no evidence, nothing you prepared beforehand
There's nothing that I prepared and submitted to council before that.
So, what you produced, the final report, is the product of evidence you heard and your consultation with council.
What is in my report is what I discovered during analysis of the data. Yes, also aspects that were addressed in the testimony of
And issues raised by council, and issues that you heard in evidence here.
Yes, aspects that I heard in evidence from, because I quote Colonel Otto also in the report.
So, just to be correct, Dr. Alter, it's not just the 8 weeks after Colonel Otto testified. You had the paper trail and the SOPs from the lab long before the trial even started. Isn't that correct? It was handed over to you in, if I'm not mistaken, March of this year.
My Lord, yes, the discovery process went on for quite a while, and the last evidence we received were earlier this year. I believe in May or June this year,
And
1st of June.
is it your evidence that after you received the paper trail, as requested from the laboratory, you did your audit, as you stated, but you did not give council any document setting out your professional expert opinion on the data that you received from the laboratory?
My Lord, no, I did not write a report to council prior to hearing the evidence of Lieutenant Colonel Otto.
But did you not prepare an independent report right at the beginning, before you heard all the evidence? Purely a scientific report on the factual evidence before you. Before your mind was clouded either by the evidence you heard or what council discussed with council. Do you not prepare an initial objective scientific report?
My Lord, if I may just sit down.
Sorry? Yes, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you. My Lord.
I am more comfortable now.
Yes, thank you.
Now, did you prepare such a report? This answer is simple, yes or no?
My Lord, I've never in any court case
Prepared an objective
prepared a report. In this case, I was asked to do it merely for expediency's sake. I was told so that council, so that the state could know what I would be testifying about last week.
Yes. So your report was only for the purpose of the state knowing. Is that the only purpose of your report?
My Lord, this is my independent scientific view of the data. I was asked by the council to prepare this report so that when I testify, what aspects I would be testifying about.
Times have changed, but when I was counsel, we first solicited the report from experts to see whether they could add anything to the case before we consulted further reports were done. That wasn't done in this case.
It was not done in this case, my Lord. When council contracted with me, I told them that I've not written a report before. I also told them that I will give them my independent view. Whether it helps or hurts their case, the outcome is the same to me. I'm here to assist the court. I'm not here to testify for the defense or testify for the prosecution. It's merely the defense that called me to testify.
Yes, Dr. Otto, that's pretty clear. Thank you very much for saying that. But, it would be very helpful if you produce a report before your mind is clouded by other evidence and discussions with counsel.
Your Worship, my Lord.
Yes, you must ask a question later.
I just want to object.
Yeah, your objection noted. All I'm putting to you is this.
Sorry, my Lord, I just want to put what the
Yes,
objection
I
is.
noted your objection.
My Lord, I want to put what the objection is.
Yes, this is your
Yes.
objection.
You're suggesting to her that we make suggestions to her.
No, we're not suggesting that at all.
You said clouded by what council's told you.
Clouded by discussions with counsel. That's
There's no
different.
indication that she's been clouded by
Let me just
no
clarify.
basis has been laid.
Let me clarify that. I'm not saying that counsel influenced you.
Understand?
But when you meet people, your views are clouded by what you discuss with people, like evidence you had your discussions with counsel. Now, before your mind was clouded by all that, did you produce a report? That's all I'm asking.
My Lord, I did not produce a report. I also don't
That's
believe.
See, Dr. Alter, in any trial, criminal or civil, the court makes a decision on objective evidence. That's why the court is objective, is not part of us fighting here down below. And normally opinion evidence is not admissible because it is that, opinion evidence. Except when you are an expert witness, you give expert opinion.
Look towards me.
You give expert opinion because you are objective in your field. That is why an expert opinion evidence is admissible in a court of law. Because you can assist the court to come to a decision in a certain field, the field that you are an expert on. You agree with that? I see you nodding your head.
My
Yes,
Lord,
you answer the question. Yeah.
Yes, my Lord, I absolutely agree with that. An expert should be objective and absolutely here to assist the court.
And that includes making concessions even if it harms the party in court.
Correct.
Now, if we look at your background of office, you're referring to Annexure A01 attached to Exhibit EE. Starting with paragraph 2, you give your academic experience, your professional qualifications. Then you move on to paragraph 3, where you give a record of your employment as from 1980.
That's correct, my Lord.
And if I have a look at the details that you give for these positions, you occupied that all appears to be in academic positions or of an administrative nature. Am I correct?
My Lord, this curriculum vitae I have prepared to include all my academia or scientific employment to the best of my recollection. There are, for instance, which is why it's called an abbreviated CV, there are, for instance, aspects of my employment that I've not included, which is when I first started after school, I worked as a typist. I did not include that in my CV.
All due respect, Dr. Ockers, you're not answering my question. I'm simply saying to you, when I read through your record of employment, paragraph 3.1 of your CV, all the positions that you note there appear to be of an academic or administrative nature. Is that correct or not?
My Lord, most of them are academic. I cannot find the one of administrative, but I will say that some people will say if you are the head of an academic department, there are administrative components, and the CEO, there are administrative components included in that.
Interesting to know.
Instances of employment are of an academic nature that you cite.
Yes, because the CV is scientific/academic, and also include aspects of my current company.
Then you know specifically, the closest that I came to finding anything of a practical laboratory nature, Dr. Olters, paragraph 3.111 in 1980 to 1985, where you list your position as a medical technologist and medical technologist in training. Is that practical laboratory work that you did? Or was it also academic in nature?
My Lord, if I may now answer in full, the medical technologist work was actually processing DNA, processing samples, chemical pathology samples in a laboratory. Just before that, I was a part-time research assistant where I did practical laboratory work. Then in 1992 to 1994, I visited Johns Hopkins where I did the practical work for my PhD, which included screening the entire human genome with STR markers. So that's practical work. Then in 1994, my Lord, what I did was not screen the entire genome. I used STR markers that are interspersed throughout the genome, and I screened the genome in a process what we call linkage. So there's a set of markers, STR markers, and we screen the genome with that. And in paragraph 4.1.6 of my CV, I've calculated, because I've been asked this question before, that I used a set of 145 STR markers and generated just... So that was my PhD, ran from 1992 to 1994 when I visited Hopkins, and also after that. So I generated there practically just over 13,000 STR markers. Then in 1994, I was a part-time lecturer at the University of Limpopo. It was then called the University of the North, where I did lecturing on a part-time level. But what I did was I taught honors students how to PCR, how to extract DNA, how to do electrophoresis, and how to interpret DNA results.
If I can just interrupt today, Dr. Alves, did you give a class, a practical class, where you used the laboratory, or did you just teach them academically?
It was a practical class where I taught them physically how to do these experiments. Then also, when I was head of the molecular biology unit, 1995 to 2001, and 2001 to 2008, when I was head of the Center for Genome Research, my lord, even though I was the supervisor of students, I physically, practically helped them in the laboratory. I actually standardized the training that I gave them to do the following: to know what DNA is, to extract DNA, so isolate DNA, to quantify DNA. Yes, it was not with, as in this case, with qPCR, but on a different technique. To then put that DNA results onto a separation medium, then to do electrophoresis, to do interpretation, to do conclusions, and then to write that up into a thesis or a scientific paper. Even
Question, Dr. Alves, how much lab work do you actually do yourself?
my lord, at present I do very little laboratory work, as I am the CEO of the company. So, which is what I wanted to just complete my previous answer with. Currently, what I do as CEO is I train other academics and scientists and forensic scientists in how to do, for instance, quantitative PCR, how to isolate DNA, how to do PCR, how to do DNA sequencing, and how to interpret those results.
From the onset, from the start of your career, Dr. Alves, how much practical laboratory work experience do you have?
My lord, I can't answer that. After counting, I will just need time to count it.
Is it years, months? Part of your job included laboratory work?
Part of my job always included laboratory work, except now for my CEO position. Currently, in the beginning it did. So it is years of experience.
In forensic laboratories or normal laboratories?
My lord, I have never been employed in a forensic laboratory. For me to be able to do so, I would have to work for the state in South Africa.
So you've never been employed by the state?
I've never been employed. Well, my lord, the question is not as simple as that. I've never been employed in a forensic facility by the state. I do have a state personnel employment number because I serve on certain committees for the Department of Science and Technology. And since I'm refunded for my board representation, so
The simple answer is no, you have not worked for the state.
Well, I will, my lord, err towards the side of caution.
I'm sorry, the answer is not simple.
Yes.
You say you...
I've
you
never
have
been
done
employed
ad hoc, yeah,
by
you've been employed
the
by
state itself, unless the university is seen as a state or semi-state entity.
But in any event, you've never worked in a forensic laboratory.
That's correct, my lord.
And you've now already mentioned that you no longer do a lot of lab work in DNA biotech, which, if my mathematics is correct, that is where you've been employed for the last 17 years.
My lord, yes, I have been employed for the last 16 or so years there, but I also, in the same time, from 2001 to 2008, was head of a department. So I ran the Center for Genome Research and then a biotech concurrently for, if my mathematics is correct, for 7 years.
And how many people do you employ at the moment?
My Lord, I employ 4 scientists, including myself.
4 scientists who, like you, do not do lab work, or what exactly do you do at BioLab?
My Lord, my company is involved in contract research. That is a very small component of what we currently do. We have developed for other companies in the past. Most of what we currently do is court case consultation, so we run a pro bono service for legal aid, and we assist the legal profession in understanding how DNA evidence should be dealt with in court, and we present short courses in biotech, forensics, innovation, etc.
So basically you're a training company, consulting training company, you're not a laboratory, so to speak.
My Lord, our training is laboratory based, so it's hands-on laboratory training. So when somebody comes to us and we teach them how to PCR, yes, we sit in the boardroom and then we take them to the laboratory and physically show them how it is done. So literally at the bench, how it is done in the laboratory.
Then do you do actual laboratory work in your laboratory, or do you just use the instruments as props to teach people?
My Lord, the instruments are used for work whenever we take on consultation for other companies, or do demonstrations for other companies, or do work for other companies. We have not done so in the recent, and I don't have that year number with me.
So at this point in time, basically you do consulting work
And
of an academic, administrative nature.
my Lord, at this point we do consultation work in forensic science, and which also entails helping other forensic scientists to understand, to interpret and report on DNA evidence, and also to do training that is practically based. There are some of the training courses, for instance, such as innovation, or idea generation, or science project management, that does not have a laboratory component. But the good laboratory practice, PCR, which is the vast majority of courses that we present, has it's a practical course.
It's a course, it's still a course. You do not do practical analysis of samples. People don't send you samples and say, listen, I've got a problem with this, can you test this for me? Or
My Lord?
analyze this for me?
My Lord, correct. I do not run a diagnostic laboratory. What we are asked to do all the time is to interpret DNA evidence because of this consultation and pro bono service that we run.
And you use the instruments in your business as props to show people and train them how to use it.
My Lord, the instruments are not props. They are physically working instruments as one would find in any other laboratory. And we teach people, scientists, forensic scientists, how to use those instruments to generate a DNA answer, or as in the forensic case, parts of the process that they would have to follow to generate a DNA profile.
Maybe my wording is misleading to you, Dr. Volker. You use the instrument to teach your courses. You do not use the instruments to perform a scientific process where a sample or samples are sent to you, you receive them, and you go through the whole process of analyzing those samples.
My Lord, as I've answered, we do not run a diagnostic laboratory. We are a research laboratory. So we do not do diagnostics, correct. But what I do want to...
All you're doing is using the instruments here to demonstrate how it's done.
My Lord, what I do want to point out to the court is that in our laboratory, we also take on, for instance, students who are interns, and they have to do a research project. So the instruments in the laboratory is not merely sitting there waiting for the short courses to happen, but we take on interns from time to time when we are not overloaded with projects and we can accommodate them in our laboratory. And they do actual research projects. So the instruments are used to do research, but not diagnostics.
Now, in paragraphs 6, 6 to 8 of your CV, you list a number of clients in South Africa as well as international. I presume that those are all the clients your company has ever dealt with, all the countries and all the clients.
My Lord, I cannot say that this is an extensive list. We do try to update it from time to time, but I would say it's a good representation of clients.
Everybody that you have done work for in the past.
My Lord, I cannot categorically say so because that's, I will have to verify that. I don't update my CV every time that we get a new client. To the best of my recollection, this is a good representation of clients. So what we try to do in the CV like this is we try to show that we have academic clients, we have public sector clients, we have international clients.
But not at this point in time, of all of these people listed here, they're not your clients at this point in time necessarily.
They're not our clients, all of them together are not our clients at this moment in time. The CV speaks about the past.
And if I understand your dealings with these companies or institutions, in any event, Dr. Orcus, it is also courses that you presented to these institutions, or governments, or universities, private sector. It's courses.
Now, my Lord, some of these clients are, for instance, a student or a private sector individual who is struggling with a specific process within their own laboratory. They would then contract with us and we will get them into our laboratory and try to help them to identify the root cause why their analyses, be it a paternity laboratory, be it a different diagnostic laboratory, a veterinary laboratory that also does DNA profiling, we would then try to assist them to get to the root cause of why their tests are currently not working, and that requires laboratory work. Some of it is administrative, but not all of it.
And you, in any event, at this point in time, do not do that laboratory work?
My Lord, most of the laboratory work, I have to give a credit, is done by my colleague. I am mostly involved in the analysis and interpretation phase of the results that comes from the laboratory.
In paragraph 9, now page 6 of 33, Dr. Orcus, you list your supervising, teaching and lecturing experience. The lectures that you mentioned, are these academic in nature, or do you also give practical lectures in laboratory work?
My Lord, I am presuming that the state's referring to paragraph 9.4. Those are all academic lectures. My Lord, I had assumed that the state was referring to paragraph 9.4. Those forensic lecturing that I'm talking about there is experience as a expert witness, and we also talk about the processes, so from DNA isolation up to writing of the report, so pretty much what is outlined in Exhibit EEE1, the flow diagram. So we yes, so we lecture postgraduate students on how to act or how to enter the forensic science field should they want to, and we talk about the experiences that we've had. So yes, those are all academic.
And then in paragraph 9.5, you refer to the essential short course series that you present at DNA Biotech August. Do you present the courses yourself, or do people you employ present the courses?
My Lord, if I can make just one correction. As my eye fell onto 9.5, I realized that my answer about the previous question, 9.4, was not totally correct, because there is a practical course in molecular biology also included at 9.4.25, and I hope I'm not missing anything else. It's also at 9.4.19, 9.4.2.1. So there are some practical courses, but mostly they are academic. Now, to answer the state's question about whether these courses are presented by my colleagues or myself, I'm still involved in presenting these courses myself. So my two colleagues who are in court and myself, and the colleague that are at home usually just assists in some aspects, but we all present these courses. So yes, I do present these courses myself.
Not all of them. It is shared by you and your two colleagues.
It is shared by myself and two colleagues. So for instance, some of these courses is a 5-day course. It's not so easy to speak for 5 days in a row. So for the one course, we will divide the chapters between each other and say, okay, this for this specific course, I will present chapters so and so, and my colleagues will present some of the other chapters.
And if we move on to paragraph 10 on page 9 of 33, Dr. Olkers, you list all the presentations, lectures, and seminars you were invited to. Did you attend these seminars, presentations, lectures, or did you give actual presentations yourself?
My Lord, I apologize. I couldn't quite hear the full question. If it could just be repeated.
I'll repeat it to you. The number of presentations, lectures, and seminars that you list under paragraph 10 on page 9 of 33 of your CV, Dr. Olkers, did you merely attend the presentations, lectures, and seminars, or did you yourself give actual presentations at these instances?
My Lord, in paragraph 10, I gave all of those lectures myself, and I was invited to do so. So it's not a conference where you send in an abstract and somebody then selects you and then you go to the conference. These are instances where I was invited to do so.
But you gave the actual lecture.
But I gave the actual lecture, correct.
That is what I asked you, Dr. Olkers. In paragraph 11, you similarly mentioned conferences, meetings, and courses. Some of them you say you did presentations, but I also note that most of them your name is part of the list of names that are mentioned under each or in each paragraph.
Yes.
Part of the group. Did you give the actual presentations, or did you attend as a panel member?
My Lord, as is indicated in the footnote of this CV and as is customary for academic CVs, I have an asterisk to say the name of the presenting author is underlined. So for the first 6 presentations I delivered myself. The 7th one, Van der Merwe, is underlined. My name is just in bold to indicate to make it easy to track. The 8th one I presented again, then Towers, Van der Merwe, then myself, Towers, Ndluli, etc. So in academia I have graduated more than 30 masters and PhD students, and whenever they present and I make a substantial contribution to that, yes, my name would be as a part of the list. So no, all the presentations listed there, all of the 54, not all of them were presented by me. I can quickly count how many were.
Now, you don't need to count, of course, I'm sure we can also count, but just for record purposes, it then means that most of these instances you did not do any presentation, you were just present. That's it.
My Lord, I wasn't merely present, so to be a co-author on a presentation, one would have to make a substantial contribution. So you would have to help create that presentation, or help to create, to bring about the research result that research is about. That is how the rules work in, at least in the human genetics field that I practice in.
But it is not your work and your work only.
It's not my work. Most work is hardly ever in human genetics done by a single person. It is work of a group, and then it's clearly indicated when I have not presented that at that particular conference.
Specifically with regards to paragraph 11.5, Dr. Auckland, page 16 of 33. Exactly, do you try to inform the court of what did you do at the Faculty of Medicine Academic Day in the University of Pretoria?
My Lord, the CV that I submit to court is not one that I prepare or customize specifically for the court. Perhaps the court has no interest in the fact that we also were involved in further research presentations. I try to have one CV that I can use. So the Faculty of Medicine Academic Day is a day where myself or my students will make a presentation to the faculty of the university related to our research that we have been doing.
Just to be clear, I'm not trying to tell you how you can draft your CV or how you should not draft your CV. I'm merely asking you what does that look like. But you have answered that question. Paragraph 11.7, still on page 16 of 33, Dr. Walker. I note that you mentioned and I hope I pronounce it correctly, the Facioscapulohumeral Muscular Dystrophy Society. Events that you organized during 1999 to 2003. That is what you mentioned in that paragraph, correct?
My Lord, yes, Facioscapulohumeral Dystrophy Information Day was actually organized for the patients to report our research back to them.
I don't want to interrupt you, Doctor. I'm just asking you a simple question. You note in that paragraph that you organized certain events. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, is it correct then to infer that you were a member of the society during 1999 to 2003?
The FSHD is not a society, my Lord. We did this work under the auspices of the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation.
So you weren't a member of a society or belonged to a group?
I was a member of the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation, and our research was sponsored by the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation.
During 1999 to 2003?
My Lord, that's as far as I can tell from my CV.
I found on the internet, Dr. Walker's, a newsletter from the European Malignant Hypothermia Group. And it was printed or dated in September 2005, which stated that you contacted or proposed that their next meeting be held in 2006 be held in South Africa. Do you remember the incident?
Yes, my Lord, there were a discussion going on about the European Society, where the next meeting would be. We had originally thought we could host it in South Africa, and due to resources that were not available, eventually it was not held in South Africa.
We'll be back to that. The question I want to ask you about that, Dr. Walker, were you a member of this society at that time, or group? The European Malignant Hypothermia Group.
My Lord, I will have to verify in my records whether I was a group, whether I was a member of that group, or did they just invite me to the meeting?
You see, I asked you these two questions specifically with regard to these two instances, groups or societies, whatever the operative word is, because I don't note them as being reflected in paragraph 30 13 of societies where you are currently a member. That's on page 17 of 33.
Yes,
13.2.
yes, my lord. I am currently no longer involved in facioscapulohumeral dystrophy research. There is a working group that still sends me information as if I'm a member, but I haven't worked in that field for quite a while.
And you're also no longer part of the malignant hypothermia group.
Correct.
See, it is interesting you testified that the meeting of the EMHG, the European Malignant Hypothermia Group, did not eventually take place in South Africa because of a lack of resources.
My lord, if I may say, I didn't have the resources to host that meeting. Whether it did eventually happen in South Africa or not, I am not aware.
I can put it to
Someday
you,
else.
Dr. August, this is something that can be found on the internet. I'm merely typing your name and this came out. It is said that they could not discuss your proposal of holding a meeting in South Africa in 2006 because you never got back to them. And to the extent that they had to abandon the idea of holding the meeting in South Africa in 2006.
My lord, there were a lot of emails back and forth. We discovered that they were talking to actually two groups in South Africa to hold it here. This was an academic meeting that it was a group also from the University of Pretoria.
So you had factions at the University of Pretoria.
No, no, my lord, it was just.
Okay, that's a joke.
It was a clinician and I was a scientist, and there was a long debate as to whether a clinician or a scientist should be hosting the meeting.
So your long answer now, Dr. August, do you not dispute the fact that they noted in their newsletter that you didn't get back to them?
My lord, what they noted in the newsletter I'm not aware of. I would take the state's word for if she found it on the internet that it is there. I can only say that I will go back. I can go back into my records and find all the information related to this one instance where somebody said I didn't get back to them on the email.
I accept your answer, Dr. August. It's not important. I was just trying to follow up what they said. Because I note that during 2001 to 2008, which more or less overlaps with your contributions or involvement in the facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy and the European Malignant Hypothermia Group, it's also more or less run towards the end of your time when you were appointed as a professor and director of the Center for Genome Research at Northwest University and the head of molecular biology at the University of Victoria, more or less the same time.
My lord, when the state just mentioned the date of the EMHG newsletter, I couldn't make a quick note of it, but if the state says that it overlaps with that time, that could very well be the case. And
I'll refer to you to the specific paragraphs, Dr. August. Paragraph 3.1.2 and paragraph 4.1.1 covers the time period 2001 to 2008 when you were the professor and director of the Center for Genome Research at Northwest University.
correct.
And then from 1995 to 2001 you were the head of molecular biology at the University of Victoria, and I get that from paragraph 3.1.3.
That is correct.
4.1.3.
That is correct, my lord. So I did leave one university and joined another university.
And then you were also during 1995 to 2000, you were either a lecturer or research officer at the Department of Human Genetics, also at the University of Victoria.
Correct. So from 1995 to 2000, I was a research officer. In 2001, I became a senior lecturer, and then several times, from 1995, during that time, I was head of the molecular biology unit.
And why are you no longer involved in that type of research, Dr.
My lord, I left the University of Pretoria I believe in September 2001, with a view of starting my own company, Breda Biotech. I was then approached by Northwest University to start the Center for Genome Research and run it concurrently with the company, which I then eventually did for the first couple of years that the company was existed. So the whole idea was that I had a half-time position at the university and a half-time position at the company. That didn't turn out to be the case. I basically worked full-time for the university, and the company suffered a little bit. So eventually I moved out of academia, and then now I'm just working full-time in Breda Biotech.
So you moved on from academic teaching in human genetics to what you do at Breda Biotech now?
My lord, after I left academia full-time, I still had associations with academia as extraordinary professors in 2 departments at some point. I just...
Of course, I don't want to interrupt you every time. You give very long answers. The question is very simple. You left academia to go and start your own business. You moved on to something
My lord,
else.
there's no contradiction in that. She's saying she asked the question is she leaving academia? The answer is not yes or no. The answer is she's partially still involved in academia. So that's to be fair to what she can't do.
I was just trying to...
Let's just put the same question more clearly.
Dr. Walters, you moved on from academic research into human genetics to open your own business or start your own business, DNA Biotech. Remaining with some academic connections still, but your main focus is your own business.
That's a long question. Wait for the answer.
Sorry.
That's correct, my lord.
I also note, Dr. Walters, that in some instances of your CV, you list certain aspects of your career twice. Specifically referring to paragraph 3.1.2, which is the same as 4.1.1.
My lord, that is indeed so. There was an instance, and we picked this up the other day, where I was asked to list, for instance, how many students have I had, and then something else about the students. So a specific organization or would want to know, for instance, how many students have I supervised, then I will list them there. And if the state could just repeat those specific paragraphs, I can refer to them.
Paragraph 3.1.2 is the same as 4.1.1. You list where you were employed.
My lord, if I may just page to those paragraphs. So 3.1.2 says what my position was and what the institution was and the date. And then in 4.1.1, I provide further details what that position entails. So I could have very easily probably included 4.1.1 under 3.1.2 for the sake of clarity, because sometimes I have to, you have to just list where were you employed and which dates. Then it's easy for me to cut it from this part of my CV and use that. But I wanted to give, in my professional experience, further details. So the same position is being referred to. The one just states the title, the year, and the entity where I employed. The other states what type of work I did there and what my professional experience is that I gained while working there.
And I also note, I just want to make sure that it's not just the only instance. I also find that in a similar manner you repeated 3.1.3 in 4.1.3. Is that the same answers you gave to the previous one?
Yes, my lord.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yes, my lord. In fact, the employment section and the professional experience section will overlap quite a bit in that regard, because in the employment section, as I stated already, only includes the position, the year, and the institution where I was employed, and in 4.1 it expands on the professional experience in that position.
I also note that, if I understand your evidence correctly, when you were led in chief, Dr. August, and specifically referring to paragraph 11.1.2 to 4, that's on page 10 of the document. Did I understand you correctly, and do I follow the information detailed there correctly, that all three of those presentations actually occurred at the same conference?
My Lord, that is correct. My Lord, can I just point out that of course, all three presentations, they were distinct topics, so therefore they are generally listed separately in a CV, but yes, the exact same conference.
In paragraph 17.8 to 17.16, as well as paragraph 20.3, Dr. August, you mentioned all your students who were awarded grants, who were invited to attend seminars or presentations, all whose work was published. That's it? That is the content of those paragraphs.
So 7.8 to 7.16.
Yeah?
Yes, 7.8, 7.9, 10, bursaries, merit bursaries. My Lord, in 17.15 I indicate research visitors, so people who came to our lab to learn certain techniques. And in 17.14 is invited seminars to my students. And then 7.16 is international professional experience of students under my supervision. So that's all to do with students or visitors to our laboratory.
And 20.3, that is on page 29 of the document. That is publications in international peer-reviewed journals by students and or postdoctoral fellows under your supervision. Is that correct?
That's correct, my Lord.
So, I just want to make sure you note this because of why.
My Lord, I am not a co-author of these publications. So in human genetics, there is a group of journal editors who brought out a guideline that states when can you be listed as a co-author of a paper. So, for instance, you would have to make an intellectual and substantial contribution to it. In this case, although Dr. Towers in 20.3.1, although Dr. Towers was a postdoc, I believe, at this time in my laboratory and worked under my supervision, I was not a part of this paper because it was work that he had done while he was visiting another laboratory.
Dr. Alford,
So-
again, I'm sorry.
The issue is simply this. Why are you citing this in your CV?
My Lord, to distinguish it from CVs where in our field there are supervisors who make it a mandatory obligation for the students to include them as a co-author on all the papers, and I wanted to make it clear that that is not my practice. That is not.
Why is this
not
listed on your CV?
My Lord, it's to make clear that I don't want to take credit for work that my students did, and I wanted to make sure that whoever reads the CV understands that my students work independently, sometimes in other
But
laboratories.
if you do not wish to take credit for it, why is it listed on your CV?
My Lord, is to make that distinction.
Where do you make the distinction?
Can you not make that distinction, Dr. August, by not mentioning the students' achievements in your CV?
My Lord, sometimes when I was when you apply for a grant, then you have to state what you and your team has accomplished. So, for instance, my company received an international grant. So
Yes,
I
but
have,
this is not your company's CV, this is your CV.
yes.
So what is the relevance of paragraph 220.3 to your CV?
My Lord, the only answer I can give is what I've already said, that the journal
So
auditors
if I be
make
correct to say that it's largely irrelevant to your CV?
it. I would not say it's irrelevant. It shows that I don't take credit for the work that my students do or did.
Thank you. Total adjourned 15.